Well, safe to say things are all bogged down on the Texas-Louisiana border, mired in rain for about 4 days now. Any sign of any improvement coming down the pike for the weekend? Let's get the latest now from our tropical expert, John Hope.
Well, thank you, Bill. Certainly glad to have you with us today. This storm is taking quite a while to wind down, but I think we can see some evidence that it might be winding down just a little bit, and that certainly is good news. Let me show you what the satellite picture looks like. And certainly we can still see here not far from College Stations a very well-developed circulation. But as we look at the precipitation associated with that and some of the cloud tops, we can see a bit of warming there since yesterday. And we continue to see these bands, lots of moisture coming up in the Gulf of Mexico. Now, it turns out that this one is now passed east of the greater Houston metropolitan area, and the heaviest rain has been over right near the Texas-Louisiana border, where amounts are still very heavy. New Orleans also getting a bit of a break over here, but we do expect more precipitation to be headed that way from the west as time goes by. Let me show you what the satellite picture and with the radar superimposed looks like. And here we can see certainly this spinning around, but again, if you recall what that looked like 24 hours ago, we don't quite have the concentration of precipitation we saw then. Nevertheless, what we see out here for east of the Galveston Bay Area, extending right up along the border between Texas and Oklahoma, is still some very, very heavy rain there, and that's going to be persisting and edging eastward as time goes by. Here's some of the amounts we have, and we've had indications that even more than that, up to 25 inches near the Texas-Louisiana border. Baton Rouge, 16 inches. That's storm total. And again, we think we can see some evidence it's getting ready to wind down just a little bit. Well, back to hurricanes and things like that. Dr. Gray came out with his new forecast yesterday, updated forecast. He always updates it about the first week in June or so. And he did increase the likelihood of named storms. It went up to 12, 7 hurricanes and 3 major hurricanes. All those categories are up just a little bit. So if this should verify, we would actually have a little more activity than we had a year ago. But what we all know very well is that the impact of the hurricane season depends on what we have impacting land. Last year we didn't have any landfalling hurricanes, only 2 tropical storms. Today, certainly looking about as well as you could expect it to look from the Gulf of Mexico over through the western Atlantic Ocean, and then off in the eastern Atlantic Ocean we have a pretty formidable wave here south of the Cape Verde Islands, but no likelihood we don't think of any development there. First place, it's too early in the season, and the climatology tells us just not going to happen this soon. Now, as we look off the west coast of Mexico on the Pacific side now, nothing brewing there either, so it looks like we won't see anything there for the weekend either. So that'll do it this time for the tropics. Now back to Bill Canini.
All right, John, again, plenty of rain going, not only in conjunction with Allison, but look at all the rain.
You're in pretty good shape, although there's potential for some street flooding over the next 12 hours there as well. So more rain potential there. Now let's look at the current radar. Right now, the greater Houston area, you're just seeing some isolated showers. This big heavy band of rain that was over you overnight has shifted off to the east, and now very heavy rain is falling just south of Lake Charles and will continue the next 6 to 12 hours over there as well. Now, when we look at the latest surface visible satellite image, we can see that the surface low-pressure center associated with what was Allison is drifting very slowly to the south. The National Hurricane Center has issued a special tropical disturbance statement, and they expect to make this a tropical depression if it has a tendency to move offshore into the Gulf waters where it has a potential to reform. So we'll watch that. If that does, we could see the winds come back up very quickly. Either way, the low-pressure center is not going anywhere quickly, and the potential for surface heating to cause more widespread rainfall over the greater Houston and Galveston area the next 12 hours is very high. So we'll continue to monitor that very carefully. You can see the rainfall accumulations just since 8 a.m. this morning continue to be very high. Most of the rain is within about 30 to 50 miles of the coast, off to the east as well. Watch out, mariners out off the coast. Some severe thunderstorms could be embedded in that line of showers, and we'll continue to watch that very, very carefully. Let's get back to the studio now with Bill.
And truly, Steve, on the flip side, a terrific day going.
Well, it's time now for Storm Watch. We want to take a look at what's going on with the tropics, among other things, and included within that what's left of Allison and the rain that continues to fall here across southeastern Louisiana. Very concerned about that, as it's going to be pushing on eastward into Mississippi, eventually as we go through the next day or two into Alabama, the panhandle of Florida, and into southwestern Georgia. That heavy rain could spread eastward. Now, we're unfortunately still seeing rain here in southeastern Louisiana. Some areas have already picked up 25 inches of rain with the storm totals, and more rain is falling, and of course flood watches continue in southeastern Louisiana as well as into Mississippi. We are seeing that wet weather affecting you around New Orleans, and notice that this area right in here, the areas with the yellows and the oranges, that's where we're seeing some of the heavier rain, and this area headed right over areas that have already seen, again, those 25 plus totals. So an unfortunate situation is this wet weather not really showing any signs of letting up. So we'll continue to watch that rain spreading on eastward. Again, we're seeing a little bit of wet weather here in the southern